So what is going on with Starfield? We're going to be mostly taking a look at everything that we know and we have heard so far this year. We'll talk a little bit about old stuff too, but I mostly want to focus on the most current news. The reality is that a lot of people are concerned that Starfield is dead, and that's mostly because back in June we had the Xbox showcase and a lot of people were expecting to at least hear some sort of news about Starfield, and we heard nothing. I think that most of us by now probably know the reason why that was the case. But we're going to be talking about all that. Let's start from the very beginning of the year and kind of work our way up to the most current news, stuff that we heard like literally less than a week ago type of thing. So going a little bit back here, we know that Todd has publicly stated that he has this vision for Starfield and he wants to do something for it very similar to what they did for Fallout. He would like Starfield to basically receive once a year a big story expansion type of DLC, which is probably what's going to be happening. Honestly, that's always how I kind of expected them to handle things. I know that a lot of people want to see a lot more done for Starfield. They feel like it needs a total like Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty type of update. And, I'd love to see that too. But realistically, whether they should do that or not, because it's Bethesda, they just don't tend to do that. So I don't think it's realistic to expect that, even though maybe they should. Another situation and statement that I think helped fuel this excitement or this expectation for the Xbox showcase was actually a tweet back in March. Essentially, there was a tweet that was published back in March, and it was a response to another comment that somebody made to Bethesda on Twitter. And they responded by saying, I quote, "Exciting stuff planned for Starfield this year." So that created a lot of expectation, right? Because it's coming from the company themselves. So what is next for Starfield? You would think that in June, in the Xbox showcase, we would have heard something. There's also this growing concern because, as we all know by now, and Todd himself has stated, The Elder Scrolls 6 is on full production right now. So there's this feeling that Starfield is kind of being left behind. I don't really think that that's really the case. I think that there is certainly an element of truth to that. They've said it's all hands on deck right now for The Elder Scrolls 6. That's really what most of the fans want right now, and it does kind of feel like The Elder Scrolls 6 is like their last chance to hit a home run here. There's been this growing sentiment for quite some time now, which I don't fully share on, but it is the general community consensus that Bethesda's kind of falling off. Fallout 76 wasn't that great. Fallout 4, a lot of people think that that game was very aggressively mid, and a lot of people, which I'm not one of them, but a lot of people hate Starfield. At least when you're comparing it to the success of something like Skyrim, right? Starfield does have an audience. I'll be the first to tell you because all of my Starfield videos do very well. There's clearly an audience for it. But it's certainly nothing like the success that Skyrim was, right? So there's a lot of pressure on Bethesda to really deliver with The Elder Scrolls 6, especially because of how long it's been. As a matter of fact, I'm sure that there's a lot of pressure on them to also deliver when it comes to Fallout 5, which we'll make a separate video about that, but they are actually working on that also. In any case, after this tweet back in March, then comes May, and Starfield gets a pretty big update. It's not really an update that completely overhauls the game. It's not really the update that I think most of us are kind of hoping for or expecting, but it did fix a lot of things. It provided a lot of patches that fixed things that were still buggy from the game since launch, which I don't know why that took so long, but they did do that. They also introduced a new low quality mode so more people can play the game and especially play the game in more different devices. But really the main thing that came from this update was a unofficial DLC called The Watchtower, which is pretty darn good, but it wasn't made by Bethesda. The Watchtower is essentially a paid mod, which is very much an unofficial DLC. It adds a lot to the game and it's really good. It's about $10, but a lot of people weren't happy about that because, there's this big debate around whether or not mods should be paid or free, right? The whole thing with mods is that they're made by the community for the community. That is one side of the argument, and then there's the other side of like, well, hey, if just some average Joe or just some modders were able to make this good of an unofficial DLC, why can't Bethesda make a good DLC? Most people, not everybody, are kind of in agreement that Shattered Space was pretty bad. I didn't feel at all that for the $30 price tag, it added enough to the game. Like, it's cool in a vacuum, but when you add that price tag to it, it's insanely expensive for what it does. So this created some concern, right? Because people are saying, okay, the exciting stuff that was planned for Starfield was nothing but patches and some paid mod, right? Okay, well, maybe not. Maybe in the June Xbox showcase, we're gonna see more stuff, right? Maybe there's more. And then we finally come to June, and it's complete radio silence. There is no mention of Starfield in the Xbox showcase whatsoever. And this is really, really concerning people. For this reason now, a lot of people think that there's just nothing planned for Starfield. And there actually is. We'll talk about it, but this is where the concern is coming from. So technically, this bit of news is just speculation based on something that is public. However, multiple outlets have now confirmed that Bethesda trademarked the word Starborn back in July of 2024. It is widely believed that this will be Starfield's next DLC. It's going to be called Starborn, and people are speculating that it's probably going to be out in October or towards the end of this year. That is very much in line with their production cycle and what Todd has said that we should expect from DLC for the game. I don't know that this DLC is going to change the entire game. It's going to be revolutionary. It's not going to be Phantom Liberty 2.0. I don't think so. I think it's going to be yet another Shattered Space type of thing, and it's going to focus on the Starborn faction. So why was nothing announced during the Xbox showcase? Well, there is a lot of speculation around this, and it's mostly because we are seeing more and more the PlayStation logo being used on mod pages and things like that. A while ago, Microsoft had also hinted on bringing all their games to the PlayStation, and a lot of people assumed that you would be able to play Starfield on the PlayStation also. However, it was later stated that this is not really the case. They plan to bring a lot of those titles, but Starfield wasn't really one of them. So a lot of this information is pretty iffy in my opinion, but a lot of people are convinced and talking about it as a fact that Starfield is coming to the PlayStation. And if that is truly the case, it would stand to reason that they wouldn't talk about anything to do with Starfield at the Xbox showcase. The theory and the speculation behind this is that Bethesda wants to announce the new DLC for Starfield in conjunction with the release or availability of the game for the PlayStation also. And honestly, this would probably be a pretty good idea. It gives the game a new chance with a new audience, right? New people that haven't been able to play the game. And now they get to experience it with 2 new DLC and all of these patches that were kind of lingering from problems from when the game was released. So again, it gives the game a second chance. So that's what a lot of people think is actually going on, and that's the reason why Bethesda is not talking about it type of thing. Not to mention that Bethesda always operates this way. Todd has famously said that he likes surprises. I don't know what's the exact words he uses, but he has said many times that he doesn't like building hype for stuff. He doesn't like showing stuff until it's actually ready. And we did pretty much see that with the Oblivion Remastered, right? It seems that they don't talk about anything until it's actually ready. So it's very in line with how they operate, for better or for worse. Now, on the other hand, a lot of people think that this is just, total dumb speculation and the game is just actually dead. Like, it's not doing well at all. There's not a lot of people playing it. The audience isn't there. And therefore Bethesda has abandoned it and the entire production is going towards The Elder Scrolls 6. So there are those two camps. I do think we did get a pretty solid confirmation that that's not the case though very recently. When I first started working on this video, this particular news had come out 2 days ago, so I think that it's probably been 5 days or something like that, just shy of a week now. But coming from Jez Corden from Windows Central, he stated, the core team is still working on Starfield DLC and updates, even post layoffs. As of now, the DLC hasn't been canceled and it's still being worked on along with The Elder Scrolls. So he confirms to us that they're absolutely working on it. He says that they might cancel, everything's possible, it could happen. But as of now, that's not the case. They are working on it, and I highly doubt they would cancel it. So realistically speaking, what can we actually expect from this DLC? And I'm just going to be completely honest. I'm going to leave my hopes and dreams out of the way. Let's just talk about what's probably the case. I hope that this DLC is good. I hope that it's better than Shattered Space, but something tells me that it's going to be very much in line with it. I don't think this is going to be a massive overhaul of the entire game. This is just not in line with the DLCs that Bethesda makes. I do think that there's a high probability that they're going to expand on that faction. I think that there's going to be a lot of new story content, but I don't think it's going to overhaul and transform the entire game. It's just, I don't think that that's realistic, even though I would like to see that. Also, given how slow Bethesda is to do everything, the fact that, they're already going to make this DLC, if it truly comes out in October or towards the end of this year, it's not that much time to really do that much with the game, at least for their production standards. Does that mean that the game is doomed and that they're never possibly going to do something like that for it again? Not necessarily. Honestly, I find it very unlikely because they don't do that. I think it's way more likely that we get Fallout 5 way before we get any sort of massive overhaul for Starfield. I just don't see it happening, even though I would love it. I think it's more likely that they even make a sequel to the game before we see that. Bethesda is honestly pretty famous for kind of leaving everything up to the modders, which, that's a big point of criticism that a lot of people have for them. They're not really famous for quote-unquote fixing their games. They normally release a game, which tends to have a pretty good skeleton, a pretty neat story and concepts. They do expand on that story through DLCs, but they don't really rework the entire game like Cyberpunk did. I think that anyone that's expecting this game to get the No Man's Sky treatment is, I don't want to say delusional because you never know, I could be wrong, but I find it highly improbable. What you see is what you get. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of other paid mods like we saw with the Watchtower. I think that that's still going to be going on, but I think a lot of it is going to fall on the modders. I don't understand this obsession with wanting to be in control of everything. Clearly, they've had other studios work on the other games that they've made, like New Vegas or the Oblivion remaster that went really well. I don't know why they just don't have another studio work on, expanding this game or on the DLC. It does feel like, I don't want to put everything on Todd. I don't know the inner workings of Bethesda, but it does seem like they really want to be in control of everything, especially their main products, even when they're not doing that good of a job. Anyway, that's all that we have for now as far as the most recent Starfield news. We did get a lot of new Elder Scrolls 6 news. I made a whole video just talking about that. And we are also getting a lot of news for Fallout 5, which is now officially greenlit and has been in production as far as we know. So there's a lot of news on that side as well, but that's going to be a separate video. If you stuck with me here till the very end, as always, I thank you very much for your time. If you did in fact enjoy this video, please don't forget to hit it with a thumbs up because it does help me a lot. And if you want to see more videos like these in the future, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and don't forget to turn on the bell notifications so you always get notified of every new video I make. Thanks again. Have a great week.